Good morning, everyone. How are you all this morning? Good? Happy Friday. My name's Christina Nayland. I'll be your MC for this morning. I've been working with the Queensland Government Customer and Digital Group for just over a month now, and my role is in strategic programs for digital economy. And what that translates to is that I get to work on some pretty amazing programs and partnerships across the state that are really helping to drive a thriving digital economy across Queensland. So that's pretty exciting stuff for me. It's been really nice meeting a few of you outside, and I look forward to talking to you a bit more in the break. But before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Yagara and Turrbal people, the traditional custodians on the land on which we all meet today. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past and present, and extend my respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in the room with us today, and to those that are watching online. This week is NAIDOC week, and I'm fairly confident a lot of you would have been involved in some of the amazing events that have been happening around the state. Who's been able to get to a few? I'm going to take that as a yes. It's a pretty quiet room this morning, isn't it? Look, most of you would know Chris McLaren. He's the Chief Customer and Digital Officer for Queensland Government. He was speaking at our last event as well. But this week, Chris posted something on LinkedIn that was reflecting on his experiences partnering and joining forces with First Nation communities. And I wanted to share a few of his words with you today because I think it speaks really well to the drive and the passion that a lot of us have in QGCDG. But also it speaks to the importance of partnerships. And that's the main reason why a lot of us are here in the room today. So in Chris's words, I have the privilege of regularly working closely with Queensland First Nation communities. These communities were largely formed to concentrate Aboriginal populations, purportedly for their protection or punishment, sometimes both. Despite these historical and ongoing challenges, I'm always invigorated by the incredible resilience, welcoming nature, and determination of these communities to strive for a better life for themselves and for their mob. Over the last 2 years, Queensland Government has partnered with First Nation communities to embrace the power of digital. With our private sector, not-for-profit, cross-government allies, we're improving connectivity, we're reducing device poverty, we're building digital skills, and most importantly, we are creating real digital jobs on country. The courage of these communities to partner with us on this journey is uplifting. Community leaders, elders and residents want much the same as you or I, a future of hope and opportunity. Most importantly, they want and deserve self-determination. Digital has the power to bring that dream closer. I want to thank all the amazing First Nation communities that have welcomed me and my team and joined with us. Your resilience, courage and fortitude are an inspiration to us all. A huge thank you to all the corporate, not-for-profit and government partners who have made our journey so far possible. But there is still more to do. Keep the fire burning black, loud and proud. Pretty inspiring stuff, right? Yeah. Digital partnerships really do have the power to change lives and change communities, and I thank you all for being a part of our session today. So some housekeeping before we kick off with our speakers. In the event of an alarm going off, the emergency exits are located to my right and to the rear of the auditorium. The assembly area is the grassed area in front of the Queensland Art Gallery, and the bathrooms are directly across the hallway outside. So, very pleased to be here with you all today for our PiT briefing. Who's been to a PiT briefing before? Amazing. Great to have you back. So today's format, we have 2 presentations that will take us through to just after 9 a.m, followed by a 15-minute Q&A, and then we'll head out to the Queensland Terrace for a bit of morning tea. So I'd like to welcome our first presenter today. So we have Garth Wilshire, who's the CIO for Information Technology Directorate at the Queensland Fire Department. So I'm going to give you a bit of a bio for Garth before he comes up. Garth has held global IT and executive leadership roles for over 15 years, and he has extensive experience leading IT transformation, strategy, digital roadmap development, IT portfolio management, this is a long list, Garth, IT program and project delivery, and IT service delivery. Prior to joining the department, Garth held executive roles at Rio Tinto, Queensland United Care, and Brisbane City Council. Garth is a volunteer for the State Emergency Service and also volunteers on the board for the Children's Hospital Foundation. Garth is with us today to discuss Queensland Fire's ICT strategy and their current priorities. Welcome, Garth.
At some point in their lives, the work of the Queensland Fire Department will touch every Queenslander. For me, that first happened when I was a kid. I was in primary school, my parents owned a music store. It was the heyday of vinyl records, so before CDs and digital music and things like that. We had a music store over in Wynnum, in Brisbane, and it was also the time where ABBA was making a lot of hits, and the other big names were things like Queen, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, AC/DC, and the Bee Gees. On my sister's birthday, when she was turning 10, we received a call to say that the music store had burnt down overnight. The firefighters had put it out, and they managed to save the other shops that were in that strip of shops. I can still remember visiting the store, and the smell of burnt vinyl is one that I'll never forget. It's pungent, and there was black soot everywhere. I helped my parents clean up the store, and then they had to rebuild. They rebuilt the store, and after that, they held the store for many years and were very successful. The reason I say that is I like stories. If you have a story, I'd love to hear it. It could be a structural fire, like's happened to my parents' store. It could be a bushfire. It could be a road crash rescue. It could be a technical rescue, like Swiftwater Rescue or Vertical Heights. So I'd like to be able to connect with you that way. So in the break later, if you catch me, please share your story and help me understand your connection to our purpose. We have 27,000 volunteers and about 6,000 staff. Our purpose is on the screen here, and they're very passionate to achieve that. I started my role in May about 2 years ago. When I started, there was no strategy, there was no IT roadmap. The way to get investment in IT was being the noisiest person to get that funding from the funding committee. In August of that year, I commenced the development of the strategy and the roadmap. I conducted 45 workshops across all our regions and the state level directorates. There was many pain points that came up from those workshops. Many stories were the same about IT. My approach was to listen and try and make sense of what I was hearing, and with my team. We got through that, and we got the roadmap and the strategy approved. And we started in July last year. So we're now 1 year into a 5-year journey. What I heard in the workshops was that IT was complex, it doesn't work, systems don't talk to each other, and it was hard to use. That was the predominant themes. And I was shaking my head going, why did I take this job? But maybe I can turn it around. So with my team, with all the data that we had from those workshops, we decided our vision would be turn that around and be very ambitious with that. And that, as you see on the screen, make IT simplified, smarter, connected and user-friendly. Then we also looked at our mission statement. We need to enable the frontline and the corporate services. And we see that we have two groups of customers. And we need to build sustained engagement and trust. They had no trust or faith in IT. So if you're successful with a tender with our organisation in the future, you'll become a representative of IT. And I ask you to help me build that trust and build that engagement with our organisation. And when it came to principles around how we select and design our solutions, there was nothing. Again, it was a random state of IT and nothing really connected. So we had to think hard about how are we going to do that. So we looked at the principles that the department had in their overall strategy. There was 5 principles there, and we thought, yes, we can probably align to these. So we have a set of 5 ICT principles. Frontline focus, we have 2 sets of internal customers. Operational services, being the Rural Fire Service and Queensland Fire and Rescue, and our corporate services. We've realised that our corporate services share the same mission as us. They need to support the front line. So if corporate systems aren't working, they're hindered in able to deliver on their mission to the front line. We need to be connected anywhere. The stories that I heard of people needing to return to a fire station or for a volunteer to go home in order to log in and use a desktop was horrific. That's not modern IT. So we need to mobilise our applications. We need to be more intelligence-driven. We collect a lot of data, but we don't use that data to actually make good decisions or fast decisions. And we have to be future-orientated. The IT landscape was aged. We need to look at the whole of life of systems, and going forwards, our investments are always looking at the full life and cost of a solution. And we have to be secure and reliable. It goes without saying that our staff and our volunteers expect IT to work, and they expect that the data is kept safe. So through all the listening we did, there seemed to be a lot of work to do. And so we formulated 6 ICT strategic priorities. The first one being enable the front line. We need to mobilise the workforce. We need to be able to let them use IT when they're in the field. We need to reduce the manual activity. It's very interesting, our organisation, the amount of forms that are being used, none of them are really online. They print their forms out in order to use a form. So there's a lot of automation that we need to do as well. We also need to advance the volunteer experience. There's more volunteers than the paid staff, and they've been somewhat neglected in their IT needs. So I spent a lot of time listening to volunteers to understand what their unique needs are. And it starts from when they first want to join the organisation. So we've been improving their onboarding experience, as well as what they can do in the field. We need to address our foundational technology. There's an ageing landscape. There's scary numbers which I won't share here, but it is quite frightening. We need to reduce our technical risk and improve stability, and that leads us to a cloud migration for our on-prem applications. We also need to establish modern and sustainable IT, and that is not having on-prem applications. So things like software as a service is very much interest for us. It seems weird describing that to you because that's pretty much the mainstream, but that's not mainstream in my organisation. There's also things like harnessing information. We collect a lot of data, and as I said before, the firefighters in their own words tell me that the systems don't talk to each other. They don't know how it's meant to work. That's not their job. That's our job to try and figure that out. And we also need to build a common operating picture. So what's actually happening in the field? We can look at the state of Queensland, but we need to zoom in as to what's happening at a particular incident or an event that we go to. And we need to use data, analytics, and AI to make sense of all the information that we have. We still need to protect our information, so we have quite a lot of work to do in that space as well. And we've done some work this year to establish a cybersecurity roadmap, and that's informing our strategy going forwards. And we need to provide contemporary service delivery. I inherited probably an old way of doing things for IT. So over the last 18 months, we've been pushing with agile ways of working. And last quarter, with our big room planning, we had 15 teams attend that, and that's been a great activity. That quarter's gone very quickly, and we're doing that again next week. So big room planning again, we've got 90 plus people attending that, and that includes some of our internal customers. The other thing we've been doing is to look at new tools to manage our service delivery. So we've been implementing ServiceNow. That goes live in a couple of weeks. Our roadmap is over 5 years. What we've done is selected initiatives and projects against the 6 strategic priorities. We've got 3 time horizons to work in, and they're pretty much going to be overlapping. The first one to do with technology uplift and risk mitigation. That's one that's probably doing my head in because there's a lot of risk and things that we need to do to stabilise the environments. But we're already leaning into Horizon 2. We've got a lot of business cases that we're working on, and they're about to go out to market in the coming months. And Horizon 3 still seems like a dream away, but we're definitely trying to achieve that. We have been on a quest to make sure that every idea comes back to the roadmap. When people come and ask me or ask my team for a new project, the first thing we do is go, is it on the roadmap? The roadmap is extensive. I can't really show all of it with you today. Things like pet projects and random projects are no longer in the mix anymore because we have a structured way of looking at projects and prioritising those with achievability and attractiveness. But it's not just that. We've actually realised we need to set aside funding for emerging technologies. That's where our future is going to be. So to do that, we have been playing and testing with new technologies with small amounts of money, and we do that first before we add them to the roadmap, before we actually allocate larger funding to them. And I've also been brave enough to stop projects. If they're going to fail, we might as well stop them early. I've been a bit unpopular with some of the firefighters with that, but they realise afterwards it's for their best interests to have a better IT solution than a crappy one that we go live with. So some other example projects on our roadmap. Hopefully you can see it on the screen. There's a bit going on there, and it's a small glimpse. So these are the things that we've been busy working on with business cases or understanding how we might go to market for procurement activities. As I said, there's too many for me to provide detail on these, but it gives you a glimpse on what's in our portfolio and what's going to be important to us in the coming 12 months. Funding for most of these is also allocated. I get on pretty well with the CFO, which is a good thing for a CIO. I'm sure this is going to generate interest with you. We need your capabilities to help us deliver these solutions and support solutions in the future. You can see there's a number of those that have the term modernise applications in there. That's because a lot of our applications have already hit end of life, already gone beyond end of life, and we're still trying to somehow keep them working. We have things like moving to cloud. I've done 3 cloud migrations in my career. I couldn't believe I had to jump in and start another one here. We've also got things to establish an integration platform. It's very important those systems talk together. That's what our firefighters want. When we look at strategic outcomes, there are 9 that are very important to us. They range from modernising our IT solutions to ensuring that the people have the tools and the information where and when they need it in the field. We're also looking to address risk. We're trying to achieve the balance between reducing risk, improving services, and modernising our landscape. My team have a lot of drive. They have a lot of focus and a lot of good planning. And I'm well supported by the senior officers and executives in our department. I couldn't ask for better support than those that I work with my peers. So what does this mean for firefighters? Because it's all about them. I've had so many site visits, it actually brings me to tears sometimes when I think about what they have to use. The amount of manual administration they need to do. Example is the forms. So they go online to a SharePoint, they print the form out, they fill it in by hand, they sign it by hand, and then they scan it in and email it to themselves. They then email that to their superior, who then prints out the form, who then signs that by hand. They scan that, and then they send it on to an admin person. That admin person finally puts it into a system. Doesn't sound very efficient to me, and it's very cumbersome. When I've been out to fire stations, they have stacks of papers of all these forms. They're just keeping them there. They know that they've sent them through to admin, but some of the times they don't actually get to admin. They get lost somehow in the email system or wherever it's going. There's unfriendly applications I've sat next to firefighters. Their applications, they just tell me they just don't know how to use them. They're not intuitive. They're very clunky. There's not enough end-user devices. That includes in fire stations, they've only got, for a crew that mans a truck, there's 4 firefighters for that, but they only have 1 desktop in their station. So I've been rolling out more desktops across the state. For the volunteers, it's a similar sort of story for them as well. The current state is a pretty poor experience for them, and that starts from when they join the organisation, and we've been improving a lot of the onboarding experience in the last year. But the other thing that we found is that volunteers kept telling us they couldn't log into systems. They weren't given access to do that. So that's what we're changing as well. In the future state, we want to be able to enter data once and use that data as many times as you can by using better systems integration. We want intuitive systems that are easy to navigate, doesn't need formal training. We want the systems to be integrated and be able to use on the front line. We want data going to the front line. At the moment, our radios only allow voice to go to the front line. They need a lot more information when they're fighting a huge campaign fire, and that requires a lot of data. We want our apps to be inclusive. When we think about our volunteers, the demographic are very different from paid workforce. They've got lots of different needs, and they're an ageing workforce compared to the paid workforce. A lot of volunteers they jump in when they've got time. When they have time, when they're retired. Using a technology is not their strength, so we need to make it easier for them. So that's what it means for our firefighters. It is quite a promise coming from me and my team. But we are determined to achieve this, and they deserve it. I hope that you can help me and my team deliver on our strategy and roadmap, enable our firefighters to do what they need to do to serve the community. And maybe sometime that might include you, that we need to help you in your time of need. Thank you.
Thank you, Garth. And do you know, the one word that really stuck out to me there was easy. How do we make this easier for everyone? And it's amazing to think about the paid firefighters versus our volunteers. So the work that you're doing there is absolutely amazing. I'm sure everyone's very keen to speak to you about it afterwards. But next speaker that we have is Laura Poitevin. Laura is our Chief Digital Officer, Digital Strategy Division at the Queensland Police Service, so another frontline service. Laura is with us today talking about strategic futures and the opportunities for digital in QPS. This will be a very early view into focus areas for QPS and the high-level proposed approach to deliver strategic value as they move towards being a more digital and data-enabled organisation. Laura is 7 months into the position at QPS and describes that she is finally approaching the starting line after a few months of getting prepared and ready. I'm sure a few of us have had that feeling before. Laura's career is full of digital transformation and organisational change, seeking opportunities to make a difference, and along the way learning some very hard and challenging and no doubt valuable lessons. Her career includes stints in UK Treasury, large-scale service delivery at UK Tax Office, and bringing lean into whole enterprise before moving to Australia. At a federal level, Laura worked on big IT change programs, including the superannuation reform in the ATO and the welfare payments transformation at Department of Human Services, now Services Australia. Wanting to work closer to home and grow her family, Laura began working in Queensland Government at SciTech before spending time at Information Technology Partners as assistant and then acting CIO before going to QPS. Customer human-centred design, design thinking and service design are all constants throughout Laura's career and very much define her approach. So I'd like to welcome Laura.
Wow, those are bright lights. Before I start, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the lands on which we're meeting today. So for us here in Brisbane, Yuggera and Turrbal people, pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge their inspiring and enduring connection to land, sea and sky. This NAIDOC week, I would also like to provide my formal commitment to our path towards reconciliation and the truth-telling processes that we're about to begin. I really wish I could be as structured, and I'm so envious of what Garth has just done. But this is me. And I think the presentation is absolutely going to probably follow that, and you'll get a kind of hint about where we are at the moment. So that is a little towards my background. It's the design squiggle. I have spent the last 7 months keeping myself in the space of discovery and trying to understand this amazing and complex organisation that I've joined. And well, we'll see as we go forward about where we go and what you think about that. But it is quite an interesting exercise to be able to unpick and work out where we need to go. This is also what it feels like at times. And I joined just before Christmas, and we were bang smack in the middle of the start of disaster season. And the QPS have this most amazing meeting that occurs on a Tuesday morning. And it's our operational meeting with all of the leadership team. And for the first month or so, we were absolutely bang smack into the cyclones and the impacts and the support that was needed for every single community member impacted by that. And it's really quite an impressive place to be and observe when you're new to it, of this most impressive machinery getting into place to do what they can do, and an absolute passion from every single police officer, and I'll include SES and fire and every emergency service that just comes together to do what they can to help people. It was such an interesting observation, learning experience for what this means to be in the QPS. And I don't think anyone can know the breadth of what this organisation can do and what it can look like and some of the culture that kind of fits behind it. And I think I've worked in many organisations, I've worked in many different roles within government, but I have to say the one thing that has absolutely struck me here is the velocity of what is happening and the breadth and the scope of what happens and how this organisation supports our communities. And there's some examples there. It includes diversionary projects. So that picture up the front where people are working out a post-it note, that's something called Project Booyah, which is a program that the police run to help leaders in our youth, maybe sometimes troubled youth, come together and give them really leadership skills. It's quite an amazing and impactful program. We've got Jack's Law happening at the moment with the knives and what that works. We've got Safer Together. It honestly goes on, and I don't think I could ever understand where I can go. It's why I'm in that middle of discovery and squiggle. And then we have the keeping community safe and making the community feel safer. We've just had a brand new commissioner appointed, and he is very clear that they are the two missions that take us forward and what that looks like. But that's against a backdrop of actually rising numbers and understanding our data and what that looks like in community perceptions. I don't need to go into detail here. You will have all seen the newspaper headlines that we see and the newspaper reports at 7 o'clock news in terms of what that means. But that is what the QPS amazing police officers are facing and what they are absolutely dedicated to do. So I'm at the starting line. When I joined, there wasn't a digital strategy division. There was me, and that was it. And so the past 7 months is about starting to build what that team looks like, as well as work out where we can usefully use skill sets and emerging capabilities to help support QPS move forward to the future. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that and what that looks like in the next few slides. So what I've found, not dissimilar from what Garth talked, gotta say, surprise there, an absolute lack of cohesion across our IT systems. It is incredible how much they don't necessarily speak to each other and what that actually means for our teams on the ground. And I'll give a couple of examples of that in a minute. There has been underinvestment in our IT for many a year, and I would also say that we've been kicking down the road of some quite legacy systems that really do need development and improvement as we move forward. We have some amazing sticky processes, and sticky's being polite. I've been trying to set up a new vision, so Garth talked about it as well. Corporate support services, what that looks like. How do we actually really help to enable and move forward in the organisation? Oh, there's another approval process. Oh, I did not know that that existed. Bear with me for 2 seconds. I'll stop what my actual job is. That's happening all the time. Massive disconnects. So there is feeling of this distance between what we need to do and what we're providing in our IT systems and what that actually means for the frontline officers, the officers that are supporting the frontline officers, and also for our community, if I look out and see how we're doing and what we're interacting and how we're engaging in that way. And then strategy, it doesn't exist. So we actually really do need to do quite a lot of work in terms of building up that capability and that foresight. And that will be a challenge in our organisation as we move forward. I need to make sure that the team that I'm running, we are digital strategy and we have to work towards that. But the approach also has to recognise and acknowledge the immediate challenges that we're facing and how can we support and do those. So there's some of the anchors at the moment that are holding us back that we need to overcome and see where we go. However, it's all not doom and gloom. I've entered an organisation that is, the people really do and can drive us forward. And I'm going to give examples on that. Innovation, problem solving. If you think about police officers and what they do in their day-to-day job, they're exceptionally good at looking at a problem, looking at a crime that's in front of them, and working through in a methodical way to find out how they can resolve that, how they can overcome that, what they can do. We have one of the most, active power apps community, probably in Australia at the moment, where, and it leads into frustration there, where our teams have got so frustrated with those sticky processes that they've started at 2 o'clock in the morning when they don't have anything else to do, build a power app to help them out on what that looks like. And I have been blown away by their problem-solving, innovation capabilities that we get forward, and that is something we absolutely have to leverage as we move forward. The other key thing that we have is service. As soon as you understand it, and it's so important and ingrained, that passion to do right by our community, and I think that as we move forward and have quite a challenging journey as we work towards transformation, that will be really key. And really bluntly, we're at a tipping point. I think QPS are at a point at the moment where, and it will be very similar right across every single other organisation in Queensland Government, that more people isn't always the answer. Sometimes we really have to look at how digital in that space can come in and help us do things differently and do things better. So the organisation is ready for change, sometimes born out of frustration, sometimes born out of innovation, and we'll see where we can go. Take a drink. So I talked a little bit about service, I talked a little bit about strategy, I talked a little bit about the organisation, and I talked a little bit about the balancing act that we need to have. This slide really does show some of the absolute immediate focus areas where we have a huge spotlight and we do need to make a difference at the moment. So demand measurement, I don't know if anybody has had the amazing QAO report that came out in December last year, if you need any bedtime reading. That was about how we are managing resources and what is our understanding of demand. And there's been a significant amount of work done since that report came out so that we can understand that. That did start in the domestic family violence space, so that we can understand what that looks like. And the key part of that is to make us in a position where we can start to take that longer view around workforce strategies and answer some really tricky questions around what that looks like as we move forward. Productivity. Garth did talk about some of that. I'm going to talk about some of that too. I had the most amazing opportunity to go and sit and work with police officers and crews that are out and about every day doing general duties. And as an aside, before I talk about productivity, the idea of going to a call and then getting out of a car and feeling your heart racing because you don't quite know what that's going to be, and you don't quite know what you're getting, even though you've been told on the queue light what it is, even though you can hear about it over the radio. It's quite impressive, the emotions and the training that goes into that calmness that is required on there. And when I think about what that looks like from a digital and how we're supporting people and how we are providing our officers with streamlined information so they can make judgment calls based on data and call on their training in order to do what they need to do, there is something really, really powerful as an opportunity for us. But the productivity, I asked a question, why do you have such big bags when you're going out for the day? It can't purely be for your lunch, surely. And it's not. There are these things in triplicate because we still have some legislative constraints as well as some system constraints around needing to provide a hard copy of an infringement notice to an individual. So if you think about what that looks like for a police officer when it's chucking it down with rain, trying to write in carbon triplicate and then handing a copy, how do they get that back into the system? So we have some amazing capabilities there already in the Q lights, the iPads that all the police have, but not all of that is yet in the Q light, and not all of that, they still need this hard copy. They still need to go back to the station and input. And it would be nice to think that the forms on the Q light and the paper forms absolutely align with the fields that are in the computer system. It'd be nice to think that. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to go very quickly through the rest of it. Closing the loop. This for me is really important with my customer experience background. I still don't think I can call our customers customers, and I will work out what that conversation is. But the important part of this is about us understanding our interactions and what that looks like. So how do we make sure that victims of crime are kept updated with where that looks like? And how do we do that in a way that is appropriate in terms of the engagement that we want to have at that point in time? A text message may not be appropriate for certain crimes. How do we do that better? How do we do that face-to-face engagement when we need to support victims in what could be some of the worst things that they can do? So that links into the person-centred. It looks into the intelligence and the data. How far do we understand our business and those people that we engage with, and how do we use that? And automation. We need to do something in that space. We are very manual. And this is some of the longer term focus areas that are falling out of some of that squiggle that is in my head at the moment. So we don't have yet a beautiful strategic roadmap of where we go and what that looks like. But here are some of the key themes that are popping out. What's our target state architecture? And I actually mean our real target state business architecture and how that works and what things flow through from that. What's our experience architecture? And by that I mean, you are an officer in charge at Fortitude Valley Station and are looking after however many staff members are in that and are responsible for both their welfare and how you are tasking them to what they need to do for that day. How many individual systems do you need to go to start to get a picture of what are the priorities, how that all works together, what are the pieces of data and information that you need to help you roster, task, report, support, nurture, talent, grow? At the moment, they are all individual. And I can't get past how hard that must be for one of the most challenging jobs in the QPS. So when I talk about experience architecture, what are we doing and how are we bringing each siloed approach that we have to different crimes into a way that makes it sensible so people can do their jobs easier? And powerhouse of data. Wow, we have so much opportunity and we collect so much. How do we use that to understand where we can go and what we can look at? And I'll give an example as well. I was down in one of our regions. We have this awesome thing called a performance review, where people really do think about where they need to go, what that looks like. And there was a detective there. And in that detective's head, from the experience of understanding Laura's words, his beat, his area, who was there was so much qualitative data that could be so useful if captured and accessible to understand the levers that we could use, not just within QPS, but right across Queensland Government about what policy is working, what's not, and where we can make a difference. So for me, the massive opportunity in the data space is really quite extraordinary from a whole heap of different spheres. Service design, systems thinking, value-driven continually, that's my approach. Can't solve this whole elephant in one go. So what I'm really hoping that we can do as we move forward is drive through in a very systemic, recipe kind of based, so we can repeat a process, understand what those challenges are and start to pull out the foundational components where we have themes of areas that we need to take strategic and enterprise change on. There will be a significant human-centred design aspect on that. There will be a systems thinking approach, making sure we understand QPS's role in its system within the sector, with the not-for-profits, with the Queensland Government. And then a couple of bits down there that are flying out. I have no idea how many emails I get from frontline police officers going, AI, can I do this? It's like 5 a day. The ideas and the innovation thing coming to the fore of what we can do and what that can look like. It's a fascinating place to think about how we leverage the opportunities for AI in a QPS environment with the ethics that exist in that. And we have been doing some excellent POCs in that space so that we can understand what that looks like and what it can help with. But our toe is only just in the water on that front, and it will throw up some really interesting questions for us to grapple with. Robotics, process automation, I've got to find a way to get those systems to talk to each other and stop somebody from pulling out of that system and typing into that system. Data platform and analytics, we have a small-scale data analytics platform kind of being built under the radar, which I found out about. It's doing some amazing work. So how do we build on that and get that to an enterprise capability? And somehow, how do I harness the innovation of our frontline officers who just love to code at night? So that's me. As I said, I'm still in that design squiggle space. I am very, very excited for the future and where that can go. I am very realistic about the challenges that we face and what that will look like. And I just wish I could be as structured as where Garth is at the moment, but it will come. I'm happy to take any questions out in the terrace if anyone wants to come and talk to me, but thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Laura. Some big, meaty challenges there, but also massive opportunities that you can hear there. And listening to both Garth and Laura speak, my mind was going to 2032 and the Olympic and Paralympic Games, and I'm sure that's on both of their minds. But we've all been in that squiggle, Laura. We've all been there. And the other takeaway note I made to myself is that thriving Power Apps development in an organisation may be a potential indicator of too many sticky processes, and I'm going to borrow that one, Laura, thank you. Now, we're going to have some Q&A, so I'll bring you both back up onto the stage. There's going to be some mics roving the room, and I'm going to be checking out any questions that are online. And it's a little tricky to see, but do we have any questions in the room? Thank you.
Hi, my name's James. I'm from Cadent. We're an ethical technology studio and social enterprise. You each work in really highly time-sensitive and life-saving situations, and I think the work that both of your agencies are doing is really admirable. Police, for instance, you mentioned have a mission right now to keep Queenslanders safe, which makes complete sense on the face of it, but can sometimes be difficult when you get to technical detail. So I understood that maturity is a factor, and I don't have unrealistic expectations here, so please forgive me, but what are your thoughts on ways to ensure that automated systems and decision-making systems are taking actions that are consistent with public sector ethics and consistent with the values of your organisations?
Is this on? Can you hear me? Yeah. All right, cool. We do have an ethics committee at the moment, but that primarily has been focused in and towards research and what we do with research, and particularly when we work with external partners. The conversations I've been having with our deputy commissioners and the commissionaries, the need to really broaden out that, particularly as we're going into the journey of AI. And I started with AI, going, I need an oversight committee to understand all of that. I don't think it's just that either. I think it's other things in there as well. So we are early days, but there is absolutely a need, because I've got some things coming across my desk at the moment where I go, yeah, that needs some further conversations. Actually, I do need to make sure that we're talking about what that looks like. And the challenging part of that, and what I think is also the most important part of that, and the opportunity, is to start to bring together my colleagues who are used to the law enforcement side and their skill set and experience in what that means to be a police officer, to start to understand what that looks like when we start to talk about digital, and that it's not a them and us conversation, it's about how we work together. And so some of those conversations are now, because they're like, why are you worried about what's in the black box of this? Why can't, and I'm like, well, actually, we just need to be clear. And we might need to delve a little bit more. I don't want to slow you down, I don't want to do that, but let's just understand differing perspectives across this organisation, because we'll get it to a better. So there are plans to mature what that looks like, and I think it's important that we do that.
Yeah, just for us, we are taking it very cautiously, as you can imagine. So we have published internally a policy and procedure on how to use AI. One of my greatest fears is that we put sensitive or protected information into an AI and we can't get it back out. So that's been our conversation in our agency. Ethical use of that data so it doesn't escape us, right? So the use of QChat is very helpful for us for generative AI, but it doesn't stop there. There's other technologies out there. So we're very cautious. We see the opportunity, but as you can probably tell, we've got a lot of other work we need to do to sort things out. So AI is in the mix, but it's not a strong thing at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you both.
Do we have another question in the room? Yes, thank you.
Hey there, Matt from Titan ICT. We connect people in hard-to-reach places. This is primarily for you, Garth, because your most regional people are the volunteers. You said that you were trying to get that information to the front line rather than just voice. How are you guys looking at doing that? Is that something that you guys have started the process of, or is that further down the roadmap for yourself?
Yeah, so this actually affects all the public safety agencies, so we are working together on that. There's a business case we're all working on currently across 5 police, ambulance and the parkies, so Queensland Parks and Wildlife, and that is known as the Queensland Critical Communications Modernisation Project. That will need significant funding from government, so we are working together to build that business case. An example of that would be with our radios currently. They're all sort of land-based radio, and that's not really the way to go forwards. What we want to look at is technologies where we can use cell towers for critical communications, and where we don't have coverage with that is use satellite technology. In our own department, I've bought probably about 50 Starlinks in the last year. Some are fixed and some are deployable. Deployable is really important for us. We've got a campaign bushfire. It goes all over the landscape, right? Pretty hard to control where you want to place fixed communications for that. So the deployable Starlink's been quite useful for us to improve that data connectivity. That's only temporary though. We want to actually saturate the state with data going out and back in. So how do we get video and images back in real time back to the incident control centres and the State Fire Control Centre? That's really important to us. We've got lots of workarounds and things like that, but usually with these bushfires, they're in locations where they actually don't have good communication. So using Starlink has helped with that.
I can just add to that while people think of other questions. I think it's actually really critically important that we And it's one of the things that I hadn't focused on when I first joined QPS, but the importance of the data and having some images coming back, and I'll put it in so that you can make sure that your police officers are safe and what that looks like. And so there is such a health and safety aspect in terms of that accessibility and the ability to do all of that. And I think getting that message around what that looks like when we're looking for investment in this and continued investment is absolutely important.
Thanks. That's just at the front here.
Hi, my name is Nasli and I'm from Davidson Advisory, and we specialise in enhancing workplace performance. Your organisations have, obviously, as you've spoken about, people who are working on the front line and also very geographically dispersed. So I'm interested in how you're engaging your customers or users within your business, and if they are on the journey or if they are feeling like that is going to detract from their ability to deliver critical services to Queensland.
It's a good question actually, and one that I recognised when I first started in the organisation. IT is very centralised. We have a peak we have 2 seasons, with the bushfire season and the severe weather season. And then during the off season, which is winter, is when we're doing the preparation for the next season. So in the preparation stages, last year I asked my IT, the central teams, to go out to every region, which they did. We're in the process, we're about halfway through doing our regional trips through this season, the off season. So doing that, we actually go out to fire stations, rural fire brigades, area officers and the regional officers in order to just tell them what's going on in IT and also get their feedback as well. One thing I'm very conscious of is in IT, you can be well away from the front line. So I actually want my staff to actually feel the pain points and what's going on the front line. In addition with volunteers, because I'm a volunteer myself, so I've been mogged over to police as an SCS volunteer. The thing for me is volunteers have never had that voice. So last year as the CIO, I had a focus group of volunteers to talk to me, and they blew them away. They didn't realise that someone so senior as I was actually interested in what volunteers were doing and what they were going through. That's since morphed into, we've got a key project for volunteer information to go on mobiles. So we actually have 20 volunteers on a working group that's giving us all the structured feedback we need to understand what do we need to build to give them in the field.
Well, if I could spend all my time just out and about observing and leaning into my background, I would, but I'm one person and that does not a system make. We have quite a lot of different forums and approaches across each of the different technologies in space. One that's working quite well at the moment, I would say, I talked about the Q lights and what that looks like. And so that has ongoing iterative development and where that works. So both the prioritisation, the investment approach, and then how they actually build and design and develop and then roll out are fundamentally pointed all the way through with groups and engagement on that front. And they call them champions. I still believe that there is more to do in that space and how we start to bring in some of our other technologies or the thinking as we move forward. The great thing about it is it doesn't take much to go and find those people that are willing to do stuff and already do that. Out at Ipswich, there is a great, as an example, they are running data-led, almost nudge aspects, really getting really good feedback. If we pulled this lever, that's a real bite-sized experimentation on that front. So the amount of understanding, intelligence, concept kind of thinking happening that we can really draw on is really quite spectacular. How we work that through the great state of Queensland and everyone is the challenge.
Thank you both.
I'll just jump to one question online, then we've got one more over here. So I love that this person has described this as a fun question, Garth and Laura. So is drone technology an interest area?
I'm pretty sure we got drones, absolutely. Yes. I have to say that I am not across that as much as I was in my old role, where we had drones for the sharks in Department of Agriculture and Fisheries, amongst things, and also for fire ants. Yes, absolutely. And probably some I'm not allowed to speak about, probably.
Sorry, what's the question? Just drone technology?
Is it fun?
Is it fun? Yeah, absolutely.
I think also, not only is it fun, but is it an interest area?
Yes, so we've got an air operations branch within our organisation. They've got about 100 drones. They're actually just about to go through a renewal. And one of the complications, I guess, with drones is where they're made. So that's been a topic of conversation in my organisation for about a year as to where do we source drones going forwards. Won't go into the specifics of that, but drones are very important for us. We're using them for all sorts of things. It's great. The challenge though with drones, particularly with the bushfire, is we don't want to be in the way of other aircraft that are putting out the fire. So using drones to do line scanning around, understanding where's the fire moving to is important. But if we can get, we use drones as well for flood damage and things like that to understand what's happening. It is an area that's growing in our organisation. Is it fun? Yeah, we're trying to put them in every place that we can use them, so that's great. Yeah.
I answered quite glibly, but to be honest, the way we're at with drones is they don't sit in our IT functions at the moment. They're absolutely in the operational technology element, and we have a command that does that for operational support. The challenge and where we go into the future is how do we use and morph and work together that operational technology through into what we need, because there is again data in there and how we work through and what that looks like, and particularly in a policing environment you're talking evidence in certain cases, so there's a really interesting interaction as we move forward on that front.
Thank you both. And one more question in the audience. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Hello, Amanda Carbles from Raise Digital Management. I'm just interested to know, in the past the government's had testing in government program for sort of new entrepreneurial type enterprise. Is this something that can be still achieved for emerging technologies? You know, we're in the critical incident and emergency comms sector, and we're looking at trying to test in some small pilot projects. Who would we contact, and is that something that is able to be achieved these days?
Yeah, okay. We've got probably two parts to that. So there's innovation within, I guess, fire, right? So there's an innovation section there, and we're working with them around some of their innovations. There's also what I'd call emerging technologies. And I mentioned earlier, I've got a budget to be able to look at emerging technologies, so there's probably opportunities to look at that. When it comes to emerging technologies, there's a major event every year called AFAC, which is Australian Fire and Emergency Services come together once a year to talk about things. Last year was in Brisbane, and I put a call out to everyone who attended that within our agency. I came back with heaps of ideas around what we should do with emerging technologies. There's about 37 of those. We categorised those. 6 of those made to the top, so we started working on those 6. The other, there's 20 that kind of like maybe, and then there was others that I'd say were duds or duplicates, or things we're already doing and people didn't know about it and they thought it was emerging technology. So yeah, there is definitely a place for us to work with market to understand what can they do to help us. Yeah.
Were you referencing what we used to do in Central, out of Customer and Digital Group, where I think it was under Dallas's area, that we would work and do that formal technology innovation element? I actually really loved that, and I think there is a definite place for that. So I can't give you an answer on what we do in QPS, because I honestly don't believe that we have that built in at the moment. We are still early days, and we are doing trials and experimentation, but I might have a little think about that and add that into my model, if you don't mind, to see what we can do, because I think there's something really useful and powerful. We're known as very entrepreneurial in that startup space in Queensland and Brisbane, particularly with the precinct, and I think it would be good to work with that a little more. But thank you for the question. That's got me thinking.
Thank you, everyone. And big thank again to Garth and Laura for their presentations and Q&A. So you'll all receive a survey about today's content. Please provide us with your feedback so we can provide value at these events ongoing. For any inquiries about the briefings, you can reach out via the Business Queensland website to contact the PiT team. Today's presentations have been recorded and they'll be on the Business Queensland website very shortly if you want to go back and take another look. Big thank you to the PiT team and the staff here at State Library for all your efforts to put on today's event. And finally, big thank you for all of you for attending today and to all of you online. So I hope you found this morning really interesting and energising. We do have some morning tea outside and a bit of a networking event, and I'd love to speak to you all a bit more then. Thank you. Have a great day.